everyone. What's spiritual psychology? What does our next guest mean, Earth School? What are the primary lessons in life that I've had to learn, and what are my secondary lessons? For you, my audience, I have subjected myself to put it out there, and you're going to learn tonight what some of my life lessons have been, and hopefully you're going to find some insight potentially into your life lessons. So tonight's Reawaken You, I want to challenge you to examine your life this week and find out and figure out, where are you playing the victim? Now look, I'm talking from a place of being a victim almost my entire life and having to do a lot of work to get out of that. But I almost got in trouble on Facebook because as I learn more and grow more and become more conscious and aware, I want to share that. But it sometimes gets me in trouble. And because I can step back, I can see when people are playing the victim. You know, we co-create our life. So anything that's coming into our life, we've had a hand in. So where are you a victim, and where can you switch that and raise your vibration? So that's your assignment for this week. All right, we're going to tell you about tonight's guest. Doris Crompton has been involved in energy healing therapy since the early 90s. Practicing and teaching the 3 levels of Reiki has helped her become familiar with the incredible power of healing energies to restore the balance in the energy field and promote health. She's studied healing modalities such as healing touch, pranic healing, and EFT. In 2010, she discovered the emotion code and saw the incredible healing potential. She became certified as an emotion code practitioner in 2011. She's originally from France and has traveled extensively in Europe and America due to her interest in various cultures and ways of life. She settled in southern Alabama and is a proud parent of 4 grown children. Energy healing is her passion, and she hopes to be able to help clients move forward in life with the new energy healing modality, the emotion code, and life coaching. Welcome, Doris.
Hi, good evening.
We're glad to have you back. Doris did an episode, I don't want to remember when because I'm getting old, on the emotion code, and I'd never heard of that, and that was great. And then I said, Doris, we got to get you back on. What else, what that bag of tricks do you have that we can talk about? And so let's get started. Spiritual psychology, Earth School. What do you mean by that?
Well, I took a course in spiritual psychology about 3 years ago that was taught by Steve Rother. And it is psychology from the soul perspective, from the soul's perspective. About Earth School, well, quite a few teachers, like Gary Zukov or Ram Dass, are saying that the Earth is actually a school. We are here to learn something. We're here on a like Ram Dass even said, we here, life is a curriculum, okay? And so we are learning our lessons. Each of us have our own lessons, and each of us is enrolled what I would call the University of Life. So everybody who is on this earth is each person is on their own path, and it helps to understand what we are supposed to learn or how to overcome the challenges that we are faced, because everybody is facing challenges.
So the first step in this, what you did is you sent me an extensive questionnaire, and you said there were several different areas, and I know we're going to touch on all of them, and then I had to answer and then add up the numbers and the areas that had the most numbers. I said, okay, here's what's going on. So tell us a little bit about the questionnaire, how it was developed, what the purpose is.
Well, the questionnaire was developed by Steve Rother, who is the author of the book Spiritual Psychology. And by answering the questions, it can help narrow down which are the main lessons, you know, where the questions are asked in a way to help you unveil where what are your most challenging areas of your life as far as life lessons are concerned. You know, is it trust? Is it acceptance? Is it love? Is it the life lesson of being? Or is it grace? So there's different life lessons. So by answering them, you can identify which is the one that you're working on most at this time.
So what's the benefit of us learning what our life lessons are in this round? How can that help us?
Well, it can help to make life easier. Because usually the challenges are, let's say someone has a life lesson of trust. So they have a hard time trusting other people. And sometimes people are frustrated why things are not working out in their personal relationships or on their job, and they wonder why they cannot move forward. And many times they may not be aware that this is the life lessons they're working with. So once you identified, okay, how can I build more trust? Once you know what you're working with, once you know what the problem is, it's easier to make progress. Just like in school, if let's say a child doesn't have a good GPA, and then the teacher would say, well, your daughter is struggling in English. Okay, then once you know what the struggle is, okay, let's work a little harder, or let's get a mentor or a tutor so you can pull up your grades. Same here. Once people identify their life lesson, then we can say, okay, what strategy can we use to help you to move forward so you can have more joy and happiness in your life and stop struggling so much?
So Doris, let's briefly talk about the 12 primary life lessons that people are experiencing or when they're here.
Okay, let me go through. I have some little flashcards here because...
Yeah, no, that's fine. 12's a lot to remember.
Yes. Well, the first one that's explained in this course on spiritual psychology is acceptance. And you mentioned before about the victim mentality. Usually people who have the life lesson of acceptance, sometimes they feel like they're a victim and they have a hard time accepting what life serves them, and so they may complain or rebel against it or blame other people. But progress can only be made when we take full responsibility for what's happening to us, and then move forward. So acceptance is the first one. And I like to illustrate with a quote, because I like to put a face on that life lesson. And that quote is from Michael J. Fox, and he says, acceptance does not mean resignation. It means understanding that something is what it is, and there's got to be a way through it. So this is, in a way, it looks like he mastered acceptance. He came to terms with circumstances and worked the way through it. That's acceptance. Okay, that's the first one. All right. Should I continue then, or?
Yeah, no, I would we'll do, I think, briefly, if you go through all 12, then we'll check in, and, if anyone has a question, I'll remind you. Chat, Skype, or call, and we'll ask Doris, and then we're going to get a little bit and use me as an example to kind of maybe help give a face and a case study, if you will. But go ahead, give us the second one.
Okay, the second one is adaptation, and this is being flexible with circumstances in life. When adapt to change. And this is a quote from Dolly Parton. She says, "We cannot direct the wind, but we can adjust the sails." So this is somebody who has mastered the life lesson of adaptation. They know how to adapt. Sort of fighting the circumstance. They will find a way around it. Okay. The third one is being. Now, being is really about loving oneself and finding it's about finding wholeness in our life. People who have a life lesson of being, sometimes they have a problem with addictions, like always looking for something else to complete them. They feel like they're not whole. They need something. Even people who are workaholic. And any kind of addiction, substances, work, always wanting to find something to complete them because they don't feel whole. So the definition of wholeness, though, is an individual or an individuated or unbroken completeness or totality with nothing wanting, like just to feel that we are complete. There's nothing we need really to be happy, to find peace within, you know what I mean, and not to be consistently running after something. Now, there's a quote from James Hollis that says, "The goal of individuation is wholeness as much as we can accomplish, not the triumph of the ego." So how can we find wholeness? How can we feel that oneness of being? And that also has to do with finding this oneness with our soul's purpose. So it goes really deeper, it goes to find mind and body unity and oneness with our soul. Okay. The next one is charity. And charity here comes from caritas, which means generous love. And the people who work with the life lesson of charity sometimes have a hard time seeing the needs of others, Mm-hmm. And an easy example to understand is like the character Scrooge in A Christmas Carol. He did not see the needs of others. It was like blindsided, and So people who are working in lifelessness of charity, they need to open their hearts a little bit and see that other people also, how can I say, they can share their hearts with other people and whatever they can. There's one quote here from Herman Melville who says, "We cannot live only for ourselves. 1,000 fibers connect us with our fellow man. And among those fibers, as sympathetic threads, our actions run as causes, and they come back to us as effects." So it's about relationship with other people. The next one is communication, and the life lesson of communication is for people who have a hard time expressing their heart. This is about communication from the heart. For example, parents have a hard time to say "I love you" to their children. Even though they may be brilliant speakers, but it's hard to come from the heart. So, and here's a quote, like, "Communication is the solvent of all problems and is the foundation of personal development." Sometimes also people have a blocked, like throat chakra, have a hard time to express themselves. They may be very intellectual and brilliant speakers, but it's again what's blocked is the communication from the heart. So that's life lesson of communication.
I want to stop you there because we're halfway through. So
Okay.
we'll get to the other half in a second. But you say that we have a primary and a secondary lesson. So can you briefly talk about that and explain to people what that is? And then we'll learn the 6 more life lessons.
Okay. Well, the primary, when people do the questionnaire, and the one that has the most point, that's points that this is the issue they're working with, that's more prominence, that brings more challenges in their life,
And so then everyone has a primary and a secondary. They might not.
Yeah, secondary, and sometimes everybody kind of works on all of them a little bit, but usually there's one that's more that comes out more strongly, that brings more challenges.
But someone perhaps wouldn't have 2 major life lessons, 2 primary life lessons that they'd be working on. There'd be just that one that's the main one, and even if the second one's a little close.
Yes, sometimes things even may run parallel. They work on this, but usually it's a primary and 1 or 2 secondary. They can say, "Oh yeah, I'm also working on this," or.
Okay, fantastic. So I want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Doris, chat it, and I'll be happy to ask her, or you can Skype or call in, but we'll go ahead and get the other 6 primary life lessons that we're all here to learn about.
Okay. The next one is creation, and creation is it's like the people who are struggling with the life lesson of creation is like the starving artists. For example, they have creativity inside, but they have a hard time bringing it out and being successful with it. They may maybe doubt their creative ability. So it's all about bringing out and being successful in bringing forth their creative talents. And one that really has mastered it, he's an example is Michael Jackson. Is a really interesting quote, like how people master that the creation is lifeless of creation is those that are in the zone. You know what I mean? When they are one with their creation. And he says, "I become the singer and the song. I become the knower and the known. I keep on dancing. Then it is the eternal dance of creation. The creator and creation merge into wholeness of joy. I keep on dancing and dancing until there is only dance." So this is a beautiful example of being in the zone, being totally one. So a successful creator. Right. Well, the next one is the life lesson of definition, and this is very common for people who are in the caretaker position, or caretakers who or people who are in healers. Usually have that life lessons where we have thin boundaries, and so sometimes we have a hard time knowing where our energy ends and someone else's start. The boundaries are blurred. These are people who feel responsible for other people, or would forget themselves or exert themselves in order to help others, and also have a hard time saying no. So people who are working on the life lesson of definition are the kind of people who have to learn to say no.
Okay.
And one quote that's very short, it says, no is a complete sentence. Because some people just have a hard time saying no. The people asked to give them favors or to do this, that, and the other, and they feel, oh my God, I cannot say no, because they feel guilty. And then they keep on saying yes until they become even resentful, because they just get exhausted.
Yeah.
So, and I just was listening one time to an interview that Dr. Brené Brown did with Oprah, where she talked about actually that life lesson of definition, even though she didn't use those terms. But she said you have to choose between discomfort and resentment, because if it's uncomfortable to say no, and you say yes, later on you get resentful. Sometimes you just be uncomfortable and say, just, I'm sorry, I cannot do it, you know. But that's the life lesson of definition. All right, and then the next one, interesting life lesson, is integrity. Now, integrity is when our words and our actions and our behavior all in harmony. You know, when people, they say what they do and they do what they say. So people who are struggling with who have a life lesson of primary life lesson of integrity, they are usually those who make promises and then end up not keeping them. You know, people like in politics or this kind of situation, which is usually in the news, that's a life lesson of integrity. And I found a quote from Abraham Lincoln that's really expresses it very nicely. He says, I'm not bound to win, but I'm bound to be true. I'm not bound to succeed, but I'm bound to live up to what light I have. So this is an example of a man of true integrity. And then Oprah also once said, real integrity is doing the right thing, knowing that no one's going to know whether you did it or not. So that's life lesson of integrity.
Hey, Doris, we have a quick question here. Sally Mae wants to know, is this list of the 12 life lessons available online that you're talking about? Is there a list that compiles or a book or on your website?
Yes, it's in the book. It's in the book called Spiritual Psychology, and I wrote an article on my website. It's liberatingemotions.com. It's called the 12 Primary Life Lessons.
Okay, we'll put that down.
It's in my blog. It's on my website in the blog. The 12 Primary Life Lessons, yes.
Perfect. Go on. So I put that on Liberating Emotions for people. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay, the next one is love. And it's a life lesson of love it boils down to loving oneself, which, believe it or not, is one of it's a huge life lesson for many, many people. And the more I've done sessions over the years with people, the more I realize that the main cause of suffering is really that people don't love themselves. It's self-loathing, basically, like looking at oneself and criticizing and not seeing the beauty in us. So loving oneself is what makes many people suffer in their relationships, for example, is that subconsciously they wait for someone else to love them, to adore them, to give them compliments, whereas they don't love themselves. So like waiting for someone else to do something for them that they're not ready to do them for themselves. And one great teacher about loving oneself is Louise Hay. In her book, You Can Heal Your Life, she gives the mirror exercise, which is many times when I do sessions with people, I mention that exercise. It's really magical. It really helps to change people's lives if they do it every day on a consistent basis. Is what Louise Hay has been teaching for over 40 years, is to look oneself in a mirror and to say I love you and say one's name. And for the longest time, when I read the book in the 90s, but I didn't quite understand how this what this does, but everybody has an inner child that is hurting or lacking or needs comfort. And then it came to me, okay, there's the inner child, but also then let's kick in the inner parent. So it's the inner parent telling the inner child, I love you. And by doing that, that energy grows in us, in our field, because words have vibration. And just recently, about a year or two ago, some Russian scientists have discovered that words affect our DNA. And then it came all together for me. I said, oh, that's why the positive affirmations that Louise Hay has been teaching for so many decades has changed so many lives. But because by saying positive words and positive affirmations, it really goes into in our cells. It affects our body, our DNA, on the deepest level. So to love oneself, it's very many people have that life lesson. And the mirror exercise is a wonderful, easy to do exercise that will over time really make a transformation in our energy. And a quote here from Wayne Dyer, he said, "You cannot be lonely if you like the person you're alone with."
That's true, very true. Yeah. That was a big, we'll talk about me in a second, but, I always thought I'd find happiness outside myself, that I was looking for that in someone else, and, by the time I met my fiance, I was happy, and I knew that I was the only person that could make me happy.
Yes, and what you describe is actually very interesting. It's almost like a catch-22. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like people say, oh, I want to meet that very special person who loves me. And then you tell them, it's going to happen if you learn to love yourself, then you raise your vibration, and then the law of attraction will bring you that person. You don't have to go out and look for it. It will come automatically. So unless you really love ourselves, how can we ask someone, oh, please love me because I'm so bad at it, but you can do it, because I don't want it, but you can do it. It just doesn't make sense. So many people, they will find a person, it will just come in their lives. When they reach that point of loving oneself, it just happened like this, a miracle. It's like, wow, finally, because the law of attraction will do the work for them. Loving oneself is very important. I know many times when people were growing up, they were taught, oh, it's selfish to love oneself, and so almost teaching them they should hate themselves. But it is so this is so dysfunctional. And if you imagine, Julie, if everybody in the world would have that love inside and look upon themselves with compassion, they would be much more able to love other people. You see? When people struggle to love others because they don't love. So it's really, always starts within. Starts within us.
Absolutely. Now, Bubba says, what steps can I take to love myself? Do you have any suggestions that he could do to start loving himself?
Well, it's by, the first thing is everybody has qualities. Everybody has some kind of qualities. Try to make a list of what you're good at. You may be good in art, or you're a good friend, you're a good son, you're a good husband, you're a good father. Make a list, because everybody has, of course, many times people have a long list of what they're deficient in, because they look on themselves critically, but really everyone has some good points. So this is what we focus on, because the law of attraction says where energy goes, where attention goes, energy goes. So if you put your attention in the positive, you will attract positive energy. So focus on the positive. Or if you have a hard time, to ask your friends, what am I good at? What do you like about me? And they'll tell you.
Great, that's a great first step. Okay, so we'll go on. I think we just have a couple more of the 12 lessons.
Yes. Trust. And again, it's about trusting ourselves. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, self-trust is the essence of heroism. To trust oneself, in order to be successful, people have to learn to trust their intuition, or trust their own ability, and trust they have something to offer, because everybody here on this earth has something special to offer. Everybody is an expression of the divine, and that's really what is life lessons also, because we talk here about the soul level. Everybody is a unique expression of the divine, and as such, if people can bring that out and trust they have something to offer that no one else has, because no one else is just like them, so they bring up an aspect in where they are, a flavor of the divine, and to trust that, and to believe in that, and allow it to come forward. And even the German author Goethe said, as soon as you trust yourself, you will know how to live. So trust is one of the life lessons that some people are struggling with when they have a hard time doing that. But trusting oneself is something that can be learned, maybe starting small and then like listening to our intuition, asking for guidance, follow our intuition, and as things work out, we get more and more confident, and that's how we can develop trust. When things are working out little by little, and then bigger things can work out. All right, and I think we have two more. Truth.
I want to just have a real quick comment here from a couple people on chat, Doris, and we'll let you get to the other two, and then we'll put my soul out there and tell everyone what I've been working on. Mr. Money says, in major cities, meetups group can help with loneliness, and meetup, for those of you who aren't familiar, are just different groups with different interests and great way to meet people. And Yauni, hopefully I'm saying that right, says, trust in oneself is great, but how do you trust other people? It's her question.
Well, how do you trust other people? For this, you have to evaluate people. There's people who you can trust. How to say? Find people with integrity, really. That's what I would say. Find people with integrity, because those you can trust. Some people have no integrity. Of course, naturally, it's hard to trust them. But people with integrity, you can trust them.
Okay, fantastic. All right, great. Thank you for the question, Yauni. Okay, so we've got two more life lessons, so listen up, folks.
Yes.
You're in there. You're in one of them. You haven't avoided any.
Yes. Okay, this one is truth. And standing in our own truth. Okay? Because everybody, of course, there's universal truths that we all know, but there's also personal truth that what's true for someone, it may not be true for someone else. And sometimes people have a lesson of truth, kind of go with the flow in order to be liked, but they may not speak up for themselves because they say, well, if I say what I really feel, or if I say what is true for me, they may not like me. They may look down on me or something like that. Or the thing is, we're really wired for connection. People are very sensitive. They want to be loved and connected to others. But sometimes there comes a time where they may want to say, this is not really working for me. This doesn't talk to me. This is not according to my values. And this is where speaking up, the life lesson of truth, someone would say, I disagree, or you just speak up, and that's, this is when we master the life lesson of truth, when you have that freedom to say, this doesn't agree with me, and I go my own way, or whatever, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So, and Shakespeare said, above all, to thy own self be true, so, especially when I think of young people who get involved in gangs, for example, where they think, well, everybody's doing it, and this is what's true for them, so I blend in because I want to be accepted. Well, that person, that's a life lesson of truth, where something deep inside of them has to wake up and say, no, this is not true for me, and I will not continue this path. So this is where they would master life lesson of truth, when they have the courage to stand up and speak their truth.
Okay.
And here Oprah said, when she finished her 25 years of daytime show, her last show it was so deep. I wrote it down, just one sentence. She said, everybody has a calling, and your real job in life is to figure out what it is and get about the business of doing it. Know what sparks the light in you, so that you, in your own way, can illuminate the world. So she said, you in your own way, that means in your own true way. You can illuminate the world by following your truth and by stopping to always want to blend in someone else's truth. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Walk in someone else's shadow. At one point, make the step and step in your own light and say, this is what I have to offer. This is speaking one's truth. right? And then the last one is a life lesson of grace. Now, according to Steve Rother, who wrote the book Spiritual Psychology, he said very few people. It's almost like life lesson of grace is almost like the last life lesson. When they already have mastered everything else, then grace will come. So only very few people have this life lesson, where they're already at a point where they're not bothered anymore by all the struggles and all the drama of the world. They are beyond all that. So it's more of the very sage people, the very high level people who are spiritually very have risen above. They're not drawn into drama anymore. They just want. They are more like one with the universe, one with peace. And there's one quote here from Anne Morrow Lindbergh. He said, "I want to live in grace as much of the time as possible. By grace, I mean an inner harmony, essentially spiritual, which can be translated into outward harmony." So it's, this is the life lesson of grace, is to be basically in complete harmony with one's soul or one's inner self.
So let's talk a little bit about my primary life lesson. And, I laughed because I was like, well, Doris, there are kind of three that are pretty close, but we'll talk about all those. But the first one was about loving myself. So what did I need to learn? And if you want me to give examples from my life, maybe that'll help people. I always like to give people concrete examples maybe that they can relate to their own life, so that would help them, like, oh, I see that in me, and then maybe they'd be able to understand that was their life lesson and could work on that to move forward.
Mm-hmm. So your question was...
So my primary lesson was I needed to learn how to love myself. So what were some of the things that I had to learn and overcome in order to master this?
Yes, to see the beauty in you and to see your gifts. And then when I saw the answers to your questionnaire, and then when I put the two and two together and looked at the Reawaken Your Brilliance show, I said, oh my goodness, you must have found brilliance in you, otherwise you wouldn't have titled your show that way. So there must have come a time where you found a brilliance inside, and this is really the treasure. You found that treasure, that beauty inside, and this is the victory, when you found that.
Absolutely.
That brilliance, yeah.
How would someone learn to master? And when do they know when they've mastered their primary life lesson? Is it this kind of aha moment? I mean, until I met you, I didn't know anything about spiritual psychology, never heard of it. You sent me information, you sent me in the questionnaire. But if someone's out there like, okay, I'm ready to start tackling this, how do they know when they've mastered it?
It's when it's not a problem anymore. For example, the life lesson of love, is like when you don't doubt yourself anymore, when you're not, it's past, it's over, you're not looking at the mirror and criticizing you, or you just know there is a light inside and you feel it, and you also then, you can stimulate it in other people. So when people master their life lesson, basically when it's not a problem anymore, for example, in trust, when trust doesn't become an issue anymore. They trust themselves. They have honed their intuition. They have total confidence in it. They go forward. They say, yes, when I hear that little voice, I follow it. Things are working out. And so when it's all smooth, it's all smooth sailing. There's no more roadblocks. That's when you know that you mastered it.
So when we master a lesson, is it cleansed energetically? Like it's out of our aura, it's, we're done, we don't have to come back around and do that lesson again? Does it affect us on more than just a soul level, on an energetic level?
Well, yes, it makes you more confident, more radiant, more... The more life lessons we master, the more comfortable we feel in life, the more we are grounded, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And also the more we can offer to other people. And one thing also that Steve Rother is saying in his book is that once people master a life lesson, they become most of the time they become teachers. I have a wonderful example of a couple, actually from North Carolina, who lost their son a few years ago to suicide, and so that family went through, of course, you can imagine the difficulties. Why did it happen, and so on. So this was, I believe, the life lesson of acceptance. And once they came to terms, after a lot of soul searching and prayer and support and many things, actually, the author, his name is Ron Pappalardo, and he wrote a book, Reconciled by the Light, where he explains his journey of healing through all this, his journey, his family journey of healing from all this trauma. And now he's teaching suicide prevention on college campuses and in doing seminars and in churches and college campuses and different venues all over the country. So see, this is a wonderful example of someone who has mastered that life lesson of acceptance and then became a teacher.
That's an amazing story. And I want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Doris, please chat it, or you can call in at 919-518-9773 or Skype Computers 2K Voice. So Doris, when I was doing the questionnaire, I had the top, then I had a second and a third, and I said, well, I'm going to send you all those because they're kind of close. So if we master one primary lesson and then go to secondary, is another lesson's going to come up? I mean, do all of us at some point in our life here in Earth School have to master all 12 life lessons?
Well, if not this time around, the next time around. In his book Illusions, Richard Bach, one time they asked this question and answers in a book, and he says, well, when are we going to be done? And basically his answer was, as long as we're alive, we're still learning. So in a way, it's I see now that life is an opportunity of learning. It's each day is an opportunity of learning. So, and there's so many teachers around. Anybody who masters thing, we can learn. We can learn from them. So it's a great opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I was laughing. I'm looking here at my notes, and I have to chuckle because my second lesson was truth, as in standing in your own truth, which I think this show has been a huge helpful for that, and being like, okay, this is who I am, and being true to that instead of worrying about what other people would think. But the third that I scored kind of high on and I laugh at was acceptance, being in flow, the universe is abundant, and I still struggle with that, and that's something else I'm working on. So I guess maybe I'm just kind of going for it in this life and trying to tick off as much as I can and learn all those life lessons.
Yeah. Yes, and the beauty of it is once we are conscious of it, it is easier to make progress than just to fumble through life and fall down and wonder what's going on with me. And so many people have no clue they're actually here to learn, and they think they just get up, go to work, come home, watch TV, go to bed, and in that routine, which is almost like a hamster in a wheel, we're here for more than just survival, We're here for more than just to make money and eat and buy a new car and hope it. It's really all about spiritual growth. We're here for our soul's purpose. So this is what this book and this understanding is about. It's really what matters is how much have you grown on a soul level,
Absolutely. And I think the first part is being like, okay, admitting that you have a lesson to learn. But so say someone's out there listening, they're like, okay, well, maybe standing in my truth is my lesson. As she talks, that's kind of ringing true. So once people have this information, how do they move forward? What do they do?
Well, life brings us many opportunities. There's always opportunities, and it's almost like a spiral. When we miss one opportunity, okay, we missed it. And then maybe a few weeks, a few months later, a year later, another opportunity will come. The universe is very gracious in a way, always it's almost like at school, if someone flunks geometry, they will be able to take the test. Well, maybe in the school they don't do that, but test again and again until finally they will master it. So many times when someone has a life lesson of truth, for example, maybe they're in a meeting at work, and the manager would say, well, does anybody have any ideas how to make changes? And that person, I mean, the words are almost in their mouth, almost ready, but they just can't say anything. And then they go home and they say, oh, not again. I was going to say something and I just couldn't bring myself to say it. Okay, well, that moment they may say, well, I failed. Okay, well, another opportunity will come. And then they have to make a strategy, a plan for next time. Next time I'm asked the same question, I will raise my hand and I will say something. And this is how we have to prepare ourselves, because there's always another opportunity. And then when we're not happy with our behavior, we say, okay, next time I have an opportunity to speak up, I will. And this is how, by making a strategy and then implementing it. And this is how progress is made. We have to make a change and prepare for it. Say,
now,
otherwise, things will never change. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Now, but will you call the universe being gracious? I'd probably call being smacked with a 2x4. Because until you master it and learn it, you're going to have to keep getting hit in the head, because the universe is like, wake up, you have this lesson to learn. I mean, is that fair?
One time I was watching Oprah, she had a guest, and they talked about this very thing. And it's, at first it starts with a whisper. Little voice said, and we ignore the whisper. And then it's more like a loud voice. And next thing you know, she said, down the lines, be a 2x4. It's because we have ignored the signs. Because all of us have guides, and as I said, our purpose is to grow, and they want to give us opportunities. But when we are just blind and deaf to it, sometimes they have to scream a little louder until to the point where they are, where we almost get hurt. and then we say, oh, finally I get it. But when we think back, we realize, oh, there were other opportunities where we just missed them.
So the first step would be that people could take, beside, we talked about your website where they could get a list of the 12 categories, but maybe to do some examination of your life and be like, okay, what keeps on coming up again and again? Because I think if you really sit down and look at it, then you'll find it out. And this brings up another question. When you sent the questionnaire, you said, have one or two people close to you fill it out as well. Now, why do you suggest that?
Well, sometimes we think we're a certain way, but then when you ask our best friends who are, they say, well, maybe here and here you could make some improvement. You know what I mean? For example, the life list of charity. Someone who's struggling with the life list of charity, like the Scrooge type people, they don't think anything is wrong with them because they have blind spots. But someone else who's close to them, who cares about them, say, well, you come across as selfish and cold and uncaring. And they say, really? So that's why sometimes it's good to have the questionnaire filled out by someone who's close to us and who cares about us and who wants to help us see the light and say, it would help if you come across a little more caring and warm and not just think about yourself. Or someone with a life lesson of communication. Sometimes it's good if someone tells them, it wouldn't hurt if you express from your heart a little more and say, I love you, or because people need to hear that. So sometimes we need someone else's help because we have blind spots and we think we're okay, but other people know better. You know what I mean? They will tell us, well, this at that point, you may, there's room for improvement.
Absolutely.
Put it that way. Not blame, but just say, there's a little room for improvement. And then people are willing to listen, but they don't feel attacked. They feel, well, you have my best interest in mind. And then, so that's why sometimes we do need someone who has the courage to talk like that to us,
Well, and the people closest to us love us and would want the best for us. And, if you say, hey, I need you to be honest, then they're doing it out of love, not to hurt you.
That's right.
The goal,
that's right, for growth purposes, yeah.
With the goal of helping you.
So we need other people. We need other people sometimes to, as a support system, to have another pair of eyes and ears to...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, what are the 12 paradigms, and are they related to the 12 life lessons?
No, the 12 paradigms are not related to the life lessons. It's more something that the author wrote about a new way of, of coaching people. For example, when we want to help someone else is to focus on empowerment, and also one other point, so it's more like for people who do coaching or who help other people, they have some principles that he outlined. In the new energy, it's not okay anymore just to give, people have to ask for healing by request. They have to request it. We cannot just go ahead and or said, oh, this and this you need to change. It has to come from them. So always to empower the other person. And so these are 12 steps mostly for facilitators. That's what it is.
Gotcha. Okay.
Advice. I know how to do better.
Okay. And I want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Doris, please chat it, and I'm happy to ask her. Call 919-518-9773 or Skype Computers 2K Voice. Now, I'd meant to ask earlier, when we master a lesson, are we done, or is it going to maybe pop up down the road to say, like, hey, just checking in to make sure you mastered it, or when we're mastered, we're done?
Well, then the next, according to the book, he says, when people have mastered a certain area, then they either they write a book or teach or to empower other people. So that's what there's many teachers around who are supposed to make, to shed some light on other people's path, to make it a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. So basically, then the role would be to teach it, to find a way, write a book or make a show, or look at, for example, Byron Katie, who is a wonderful facilitator called The Work. She mastered the definition of love, and she's the one who said, it's not my job to like me, it's mine, because she had a life-transforming experience of going through a very difficult time, and then she rose out of it, and now she created this healing called The Work that's phenomenal. I mean, all across the world she does workshops, and so she's an example of how now she's empowering other people. So they don't have to go through the same suffering she went through, but she raises them up to ask, oh, is this true? Is that true? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So this is an example of rising to the level of teacher, and same with Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle, went through a very dark, also his dark night of the soul, where he almost didn't want to live here anymore, and all of a sudden he said, I can't live with myself anymore, and he's at this aha moment, and look what grew out of that. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal power of now, the new earth. This is, again, he moved into teaching, so this is just an example how people who have mastered their lesson, and now they're really, really busy. They're probably busy for years, because there's so much to teach. There's so many people to inspire and to guide and to coach, and how many people are benefiting from Eckhart Tolle's books? It's,
well, I wanted
millions.
to ask you, well, first we have a comment from Yoni. This is not a question, but I want to thank Doris on how much she has helped me on my issues. So thank you for sharing that, Yoni. This brings up a question I have. It seems a lot of the people that I have on the show who are spiritual teachers in some form or another really overcame challenging childhoods or circumstances and beat the odds. I mean, it really suffered a lot. So in your work, do you find that? Is there one spiritual lesson life lesson that spiritual people tend to gravitate to? Because that just seems to be a common theme. Not that everyone that I've talked to, I can't think of anyone I haven't, but have you noticed any life lesson? Are they common, would you think, with spiritual teachers like Katie Byron and Eckhart Tolle and other people?
Well, for Louise Hay, for example, that's definitely loving oneself. That's what she's brilliant at, and we can never tire of it because there's so much that needs to be. The world needs so much of that. And Eckhart Tolle, it's about the ego. So he mastered the ego. So this is also something we all of us need help on that department. So it's almost there's no end, until the world is at peace. Teachers from all over in all different categories need to get busy because there's so much suffering still. Mm-hmm. So much suffering, so much self-destructive tendencies. So anybody who's inclined to has a message. say, please go forward and do it, because the world is so hungry. There's still so many people who are making destructive choices, and
Absolutely.
so the positive wave, and it needs to be strengthened. So anyone who has some kind of wisdom to share, there's more than enough spots to fill. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I do this show. Well, that's why I do the show, because I talk about how we're all the walking wounded, and that's the term I use, and that okay, you don't have to live in the past or the future, and be in the present moment, and you can change your life. And so that's why I do this, because I believe that there are many paths to healing, and I would like to present every path possible, so if someone says, oh, that works for me, I need to try that, and then they can move forward. So
yes, there's many paths. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something else. And a lot of spiritual reading, and guests on the show that we've had before talk about soul contracts. Like, you've come into a life and say, okay, this is a contract, I'm going to help you with your lessons. How do you think, one, you might not believe in soul contracts, but how do they affect our life lessons?
Well, I read a book by Caroline Myss called Soul Contracts many years ago, and I was very intrigued by it. And apparently, even also according to the book in Spiritual Psychology, the first stage of life is actually pre-birth. It's before we enter, before a soul enters. And apparently at that stage, we make contact with other people, like that we're going to meet once we are here on the planet, and help each other. And or on the help each other learn something. So this could either be a positive catalyst or negative catalyst. Now, a catalyst is someone who activates a life lesson. Now, a positive catalyst is somebody who is a mentor, a helper, or the father or the mother who is helping the child develop a certain way. A negative catalyst would be someone who brings suffering, but even with suffering, a lesson can be learned. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you touched on a pre-stage of life. What are the 7 stages of life?
Well, the 7 stages of life, according to this spiritual psychology book, it breaks it down into 7. Well, the planning stage is prior to birth. And Steve Roth is not the only one talking about that. There's other people who also say every soul comes to this earth with a purpose. And so the planning stage. Once we hear the second stage would be the first transition, which would be from conception to the first year of life, and coming into the body. And then the third stage would be from age 2 to the teen years, where this is the time when the child is getting into their own power, when they learn to say no and realize that they're an individual. And this goes through the teen years, okay, when they form their individuality, they find their own power, separated from the parents, energetically. And of course, later on, they move out of. First, they separate energetically when they have their own opinion and sometimes don't agree with what the parents want them to do. The fourth stage is the late teens to the age of 30, and this is the time when the person is developing their own responsibility. Okay, become responsible adults. The mature stage, stage 5, is from the 40s into the 70s, where we discover what is really important to us. And many people say that life starts at 50, and I think there's a shift going on from when Dyer actually made a movie called The Shift, where he wrote it and also was an actor in the movie. That's a great resource. It's actually on YouTube. It's a wonderful movie that talks about what is important to us in the beginning of our life changes as we grow older. Some things are not as important anymore, mm-hmm. and new things become important. We move kind of from doing into being. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So this thing about life starting at 50 is actually, I believe, because I felt the shift when when I turned 50. There's something that's happening inside where we're just happier with less. We see things from a different perspective. We're not as inclined anymore to do all the time. Run.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a certain depth that sits in our heart, and also I feel also more focused on internal growth instead of just external achievements. So it's just seeing life from a little different perspective, and I really believe life becomes better as we get older, because things that used to be so important before, maybe not so important anymore, and we realize, well, what do I really want? Whereas before we might have always wanted to please other people, or you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
As we get older, say, well, what does it really matter to me? So focus on personal growth. And then as over 70 would be a simplification. When people are getting ready to transition, letting go is like the conclusion of the physical life. And then the last stage, the seventh stage, is assimilation, is when we return to spirit. And then see our life, when people go and see the life filmed in front of them. So this would be like the conclusion. So these are the 7 stages of life. So it starts in spirit and it ends in spirit. And when we go home, we make a reassessment. Okay, how did I do?
Yeah.
How did I do? It's almost like going on a trip and then making a reassessment. Because coming to Earth, it's like being on a few decades of a trip.
Mm-hmm.
And then we make a reassessment. But I think when we live consciously and realize there's something for me to learn. Let me learn as much as I can from, find teachers, find mentors, find books. What I used to do back in the 90s, I started my journey of growth. I used to go to the library and I used to ask my guides, okay, what book would help me today? And let myself be guided. And lo and behold, there would be one book on a shelf somewhere that would just stand out. And I would pick it up, take it home, and he would give me answers I was looking for. So I asked for guidance. I mean, I've asked for guidance for years, but this is one way I would ask, please guide me. And there would be that book that just looked a little brighter than the others. And a lot that way by letting myself be guided. Because there's lots of treasures out there. Lots of books have been written. It's just for us to take the time. Let's say I'm going to read something, learn something. So I encourage people to ask ask for guidance, because if you ask, you will receive. And once you get your own guidance, you get answers to your questions that are most deep in your heart. You will grow faster than not asking at all and just going about the mundane life and then feeling like we're wasting our time. Time is precious, so it's good to invest a little bit in our own growth, because it will bring us a lot of joy, a sense of accomplishment.
Okay, Doris, there are a couple questions that I like to ask all guests. The first is, what would you say to someone that's in a really tough place right now that's struggling? Maybe they've lost a job, they're getting divorced. What advice would you have for them?
What I would tell them is figure out what they would like to do. Figure out what would bring them joy. Again, where attention goes, energy flows. So put our attention, what would I like to do? Maybe to have lost a job is an opportunity to do something else that they're really good at but never thought about because they were so busy and they didn't need anything else. But since that is gone, now it's an opportunity to do something different. So ask themselves, what would I would like to do? And then make some steps in that direction. Look into it. Well, maybe think of going back to school or getting training or gathering information, getting excited. It's important to have a positive attention and getting excited about something different. Have hope. There's always a solution. There's always a way through it.
And then sorry?
And ask for help. Go see a counselor somewhere, or a job counselor, career coach, or whatever. And say, there is something here I'm meant to do. I have to find it. And the best thing is what makes them happy. Because usually we are the best at what makes us happy. This is where we excel. When we are really, could be working with our hands, or could be working in schools, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. But what one step can people take right after the show, before they go to bed, or tomorrow morning to reawaken their brilliance?
Well, is to believe that, to believe in them, to see, as we were talking earlier, positive points in their life, qualities, to say everybody has qualities, be conscious of their qualities, and also love themselves, like what Louis talked about, the mirror exercise, have that inner parent tell the inner child, I love you. Because once we develop that love in our own spirit body, there's a radiance about us, and then life just becomes easier when we raise our own level in our own belief in ourselves. This has nothing to do with the ego. It's really about nourishing our soul and filling our cup of love, so we have something to offer to other people. We can be we can reach out to others and love other people.
Okay, so tell us about where we can find more information about you, and if you have any classes or anything good like that coming up.
Yeah, my website is liberatingemotions.com, and I'm going to put a notice on the website about some conference calls, that I want to do a conference call again once a month. I'm going to put some information on my website soon about that. So to explain about energy work and also about life coaching.
And then you're also available to do sessions via Skype as well, too, because we have listeners all over the world. Fantastic. Yes, all right, everyone. Well, Liberating Emotions. Check out Doris. She does a bunch of different really cool energy stuff, as well as the life coaching. And I hope you have an eye on what maybe your life lesson is tonight, and so that you can move forward and start solving that. And reminder, September 24th, our Reawaken You series is back on simplifying your life from the inside and out. So I hope you'll check that out. You can find more information at reawakenyourbrilliance.com. All right, everyone. Take care. We'll see you later.